The decade of the 60s was not a good decade.
The Vietnam War was going on. Robert Kennedy had just been assassinated. Martin Luther King had just been assassinated. There were riots. There was all kinds of stuff going on of a historic nature.
The war, no question, was ripping us apart, but the space program was pulling us together.
The country was divided, but we had never sent anybody to the moon before, and that made a huge difference in this country.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal?
I'm Al Worden, and I was a command module pilot on Apollo 15.
So I'm Rusty Schweickart. I was the lunar module pilot on Apollo 9, which flew from the 3rd to the 13th of March in 1969.
My name's Charlie Duke. We had 9 missions to the moon. I was fortunate to work on 5 of those missions. Flew to the moon on Apollo 16 and was the 10th man to step foot onto the moon.
My name is Mike Collins. I was the command module pilot on Apollo 11, which was the first lunar landing in 1969. It did not change the United States fundamentally, nor could it. We didn't try to change anything fundamentally. We were proud to be part of the country. It did have some problems at the time, and the space program was a relatively small indicator of change. There was a lot of polarization in 1969, just as there is today. One difference was that President John F. Kennedy was very clear in his stated mandate to land a man on the moon and return him safely to the Earth by the end of the decade. So there was no doubt about what we were going to do and when we were supposed to do it. Now, the how of it was up to us.
And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
All engines running. Commit. Liftoff.
We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Well, when he made the announcement, I shook my head. There's just no way. You know, we got 15 minutes in space with Alan Shepard's flight, and he's committing us to the moon. But what a bold statement, and I thought it was incredulous. How are we going to do that?
Well, when Kennedy gave his talk, obviously we had an objective, the moon. We had a time before the end of the decade, before 1970. We did not have a plan.
The trip to the moon is such a long and fragile daisy chain of events. Any little link in the chain that breaks, and that's the end of it. And there are so many of those events along the way.
We were completely focused on the Apollo program and getting the program off the ground, meeting JFK's goal of getting to the moon and back by the end of the decade. It was an extremely intense period of time, but we were very focused on meeting that JFK goal. And so in some sense it was a single-minded effort, but we were certainly not unaware of what was going on in the country and in the larger world.
The country pitched in, and the next year I got to MIT, and MIT was building the Apollo Guidance and Navigation System, and I got to work on it. And I met some astronauts through that work, and I'd never seen anybody so enthusiastic and so positive that we were going to do this. And so I began to get that excitement, and I began to get that excitement. Maybe I could do that job.
I think Apollo 8 really made a big difference in our mentality and the way we thought about things when they went around the moon for the first time.
We're in the hot war in Vietnam, but we're going to win this Cold War.
It was partly a national commitment. It was partly a race with the Soviets, but more than anything else, for me, it was doing something that was clearly right in terms of human destiny. It was clear we had to go to the moon.
We were very goal-oriented. Everybody had the idea that, hey, I'm working here to put a guy on the moon.
We felt that the eyes of the world were upon us. It was something that we had every opportunity to mess up, make a mistake. And I knew that if I messed up somehow, there would be not only national but international repercussions because of that.
We got to know those seamstresses. We got to know the contractors, the technicians and all, and encourage them. And everybody that I would meet, basically they said, what do you do? He said, I'm sending somebody to the moon.
As we're going to the moon, he said, hey Neil, when you get down there and on the moon, what are you going to say? Neil said, oh, I don't know. I'll think about it when I get down there.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I would have consulted people quite a bit.
I think it gave people in this country a great sense of pride in something that they did. And I think that pride was stronger than the difficulties and the stresses and the arguments that were going on.
It was very much humanity moving out as it should into the larger universe. This is us, it's clear. I was just a representative of humankind as we move out from Mother Earth into the cosmos.
Far more important than the moon, I thought, was my view of the Earth, tiny little object, you can blot it out with your thumbnail, and there it is, blue and white, tiny, shiny, a smear of rust where those things we call continents, and our home, the main show. Never mind the moon. Okay, goodbye moon. There is the Earth. It is a whole show.
The photograph of the Earth, that's probably the most famous picture ever taken. And I think maybe the most important thing that came out of the Apollo program was a picture of Earth, because all of a sudden people realized that, hey, this thing isn't infinite. It's not so big that we can't figure it out.
Its fragility is the quality. I mean, the blue and the white and all of that, I expected that, but somehow it projected an aura of fragility that I did not expect. That was totally strange. But after the flight of Apollo 11, we were privileged to make an around-the-world trip, and I was flabbergasted by the reception that we got as we went from place to place. People everywhere felt that they were closely involved with that, but it wasn't, well, you Americans finally did this, that, or the other. It was we humans finally left the surface of this planet. We moved into space, we did it, and there was a unity, there was an emotional unity that I would like to see recreated.
Human spirit is to go out and explore and discover.
We're mandated, we're genetically driven to do that.
My dad was born in 1907, 4 years after the Wright brothers. In 60 years, he watched his son go to the moon. He could hardly believe it. I mean, when I was a kid, there wasn't any space program. My 5-year-old son, Tom, is now an adult. No big deal. You know, everybody in the neighborhood's going to the moon.
The real juice in space exploration today is coming from this new entrance into space technology led by private industry. NASA has a large responsibility and will continue to have one, as will other national space programs. But government programs have a way over time of becoming ossified and risk-averse, whereas the new entrants coming in are very, very innovative. They're competing with one another. They've got all kinds of great ideas.
Well, my hope is that NASA will increase the importance of going to Mars sometime soon, and I do think our focus should be on Mars, an extremely complex undertaking.
If you listen to Elon Musk, I take him at his word. I think he very, very deeply believes that we will become a multiplanetary species, and he simply articulated it for many of us. I mean, he didn't invent the idea, but he was brave enough to state it outright.
A trip to Mars, I think we will eventually get there.
Makes the Apollo program look like child's play. It's a 2-year round trip because of the juxtaposition of the orbits of the Earth and of Mars, but it's the closest thing that we have to a sister planet, and I really am very happy that we seem to be pointed in that direction.
This is going to be a challenge, and I think the human species is going to accept that challenge. See what's out there. When I applied for NASA, there were 3,500 applications, all men back in those days. In 2017, NASA had 18,000 applications for the astronaut program. So the interest is there, you know, and the desire to explore in this younger generations is all there. It's very exciting to me.
So I don't think we're going to let up on space, regardless of what the politics are. So I see us going forward in space. We're going to see ups and downs based on the politics and on the economics and that kind of thing. But I really think that over the long time, we're going to get where we want to go.